Okay, welcome to the 2023 WA3 Sec 3 elective Geography pre-assessment briefing as well as open-ended question guide. So for today's blended learning lesson, we will be running through the briefing for your upcoming WA3 components, question types, as well as running through the OEQ and hopefully giving you some idea of how to write your OEQ paragraphs as well as the assessment itself. We'll be ending off with a exercise that you have to complete for the open-ended question. Okay, add that into the other questions that you were tasked to do earlier on, and that should give you a completed gateway assignment. Submission will be on Thursday when I see you in class. So general reminder, term 3 week 6, okay, 3rd August, Thursday, even week Thursday, 11 to 11:30, 15 marks at a small WA assessment, 30 minutes. Topic coverage will be geography of everyday life. Topic 2, sustainable development itself. So if we're looking at the content, there is a lot of content is from page 20 to page 38. So you would be good if you could start doing revision now for the content itself. Now, breakdown-wise, confirmation of the breakdown. There's only one question with two parts because it's only 15 marks. So what the breakdown is actually like, you will have one data response, which will be 6 marks, and then you will have an open-ended question. Okay, don't worry, this is a first time you'll be attempting this for assessment, so it will be scaffolded as much as possible. So data response question, couple of things to remind you on. Generally, you will see a 4 to 6 mark question for data response, depending on the paper's length and depending on the amount of data response questions you actually see. So important thing to note is data response tends to be source driven. Okay, source driven. So there is always a source that has some sort of information within. When you're answering, you have to revert back to the evidence that is based on the source itself. That is important. A lot of times the question will direct you to the source, to the question itself. So you do need to read in detail what the source is. Bear in mind, you are in Sec 3 now and in prep for your O levels next year. What we are looking for is not just lifting of the information, but how much you are able to digest the information and come up with an explanation. That is important, right? You're no longer in lower sec. Okay, so on top of that, understanding the source, understanding the content, the processes, the functionalities, the programs, whatever is displayed on the source is important. Answering the question itself is also important. It's not a regurgitation exercise where you simply copy and paste whatever data you can find. Okay, so it's also using the data to answer the question. That is very important for data response. But bear in mind, a lot of times for data response, right, especially in your syllabus, a healthy amount of allowance is there for you to give additional explanation. So if you're able to fully explain and go beyond what is given in the data itself, right, you will tendency is that you will be able to secure a slightly higher score. Okay, so think about this. You will definitely see a data response question, and because you only have 2 questions, that data response question for your WA3 will definitely be a 6 mark one. Okay, so a substantial amount of writing. Finally, will be open-ended question. Now, this is the 9 mark question in your syllabus. Generally, it's either fully developed 2 factors or 3 factors, depending on the question itself. So sometimes the question actually tells you that you're going to look at 2 factors. Sometimes it tells you you're going to look at 3 factors. Okay, generally it is comparison of these 2 or these 3 factors and how they actually impact a particular situation. So in the end of it, besides your 2 or 3 factor paragraphs, you will need to then come in and put in an assessment paragraph to assess the factors or the points or the case studies that has been indicated for you, okay, and compare them with a common criteria and tell us, based on the question's context, which is what is the stand that you take in the end. Okay. Now, very important thing to note, when you're writing the answers for open-ended question, it comes in the form of factor paragraphs as well as assessment paragraph. Factor paragraphs are simply explainer paragraphs that will contain details about the factor you're talking about. Okay, the question you're talking about. So it will not require you to take a stand. So I repeat, do not start with, I agree because this factor is the most important, right? You do not take an agreement, you do not make statements of stance like most important, more important, until the assessment paragraph. That's where you are then required to show the marker, that you have the ability to think through the process, okay, do a comparison based on a criteria, and then come to your conclusion which factor of the two or the three is the most important, which is the most useful, most successful, most impactful, whatever the question asks for. Okay, so the stand only occurs in the assessment paragraph. Now, if you take a look at your 9-mark question, okay, based on the sample paper that we've been given, it comes with some data scaffold. It can be in terms of numerical data, it can be in terms of infographics, it can be in terms of table of exemplars, right? It can be also in terms of description of certain features, depending on the question itself. So you need to remember that this data scaffold is there to help you, right? So this is Cambridge olive branch to you. When you look at the question itself, you will realize that the scaffold data that's given to you will come in handy at some point. So let's take a practice, right? Looking at your revision assignment, part F that you were told to not do last week, okay, we're going to do part F today. So part F actually deals with two factors, right? The trigger command word here is more detrimental, more. So you can have two factors. If you have most, then you will need three factors. Because if you have two items, you can only be more effective, more detrimental. You cannot be the most effective or most detrimental. Right? So it's a play on grammar itself. Right? So air pollution hazards is one. The other one that we're going to have to look at is traffic hazards. Okay, and finally the context you're looking at is an urban neighborhood, right? So do you agree with this statement, right? Now, although the statement does have a how far do you agree with the statement, how far, right? You, in the answering, take an agreement or disagreement to the statement. It depends on how you have written your factor paragraphs. There's no hard and fast answer to this, okay? So what are the paragraphs going to look like? If you go through your textbook, you will realize that there are two very neat sections on these two particular hazards. So if you look at air pollution hazards, right? The content of air pollution hazards is here. And they also have a very healthy chunk of it, okay? That's on health impacts. So what is key? In your description paragraph, right? You need to tell me what air pollution is. How is it formed? What is its role in terms of human health welfare? Okay? You should also go on to tell us some common causes of it, okay, and an example. Okay, an example of air pollution hazards in a particular country. So in this case here, excuse me, right, in this case here, the example is Singapore, right? They have numbers, they have a situation, they have also got other examples in terms of other forms of air pollution hazards from vehicles, right? The health impact component here needs to come in because later on, this is what you can do to compare. Why do I say so? Because if you look at the second paragraph on traffic hazard, similarly, there's a chunk on the explainer, on an example, which must come together as a paragraph for yourself. And if you look carefully, there's also a section on health impacts. Okay, so the health impacts are two for each of these, right? It's a common criteria. So you can actually compare which one is more severe, okay, in your third paragraph. So while you're talking about your factor paragraphs, include the health impact component in here. And in your assessment paragraph, then you can go on and talk about, because for air pollution hazards, what kind of an impact are we talking about? Okay, for traffic hazards, what kind of impact are we talking about? You can choose to focus on the ability of people to resolve the impact, the scale of the impact, how many people are affected, right? Is it easy to solve? Is it impossible to solve? And then you can make your stand based on that. So, common criteria in this case, can we compare health impact? Since it's something that is stretched across both criteria or both factor paragraphs here, you can definitely pick it up and use it as your basis for comparison. Okay, it's a common criteria that you can compare across. But bear in mind, the question focuses on urban neighborhoods, which means that if you are looking at the health impact One more important layer that you could consider is which of these two hazards actually has a stronger impact in the urban setting, right? And you should provide some explanation on why that particular one has a stronger impact on the urban setting, in the urban neighborhood, because then you have truly answered the question. Okay, so what we're looking at in your assessment paragraph, the third paragraph, before you conclude, is of course which of these hazards has a health impact that is more serious in the urban neighborhood. And with that, you will then be able to convince the marker that your selection of the factor is valid. All right, so the content, these two content is in your textbooks. You are at home, you should have your textbooks with you. Okay, so 2 paragraphs plus an assessment paragraph. Complete the open-ended question as time work, right? You should not use more than 25 minutes to 30 minutes to complete this piece of work. Okay, submission is on Thursday. In class, please get this submitted so that I can get it marked across the weekend. And next week, we can go through our assessment and do a little bit more final prep for your WA3, which will be in 2 weeks' time. So with that, please go ahead and complete the assignment. Thank you. Have a good day ahead.